Well, good morning again. After 53 years of veterinary practice, uh, I've learned a lot about animals, and not just in the medical sense, but there's a whole lot more to animals than most people give them credit for in their ability to reason and express emotion. And it never fails to amaze me just where I was 53 years ago and how I felt about animals. I loved animals, but I just didn't realize that they were as complex in their ability to reason as I do now. Um, I want to read you something here by Henry Beston. He was a naturalist. He wrote this, I think it was back in the 20s. He said, "We need another and a wiser, and perhaps a more mystical concept of animals. Remote from universal nature and living by complicated artifice, man in civilization surveys the creature through the glass of his knowledge and sees thereby a feather magnified, and the whole image in distortion. We patronize them for their incompleteness, for their tragic fate for having taken form so far below ourselves. And therein do we err. For the animal shall not be measured by man. In a world older and more complete than ours, they move finished and complete, gifted with the extension of the senses we have lost or never even attained, living by voices we shall never hear. They are not brethren, they are not underlings. They are other nations caught with ourselves in the net of life and time, fellow prisoners of this splendor and travail of the earth." End of quote. Animals are also serve as harbingers of things to come, as symbols of things. So many of you who have lost loved ones may see a cardinal all of a sudden sometime after your loved one's demise, and a cardinal is oftentimes thought to be an expression of that dead person's soul. my my former wife, Milson Karen, and I, there's always rabbits. Sometimes you'll see rabbits running around the yard or in the neighbor's yard around here, but for a period of time, we were seeing a lot of rabbits right out here, right outside the temple. And we commented to each other, man, it's crazy the rabbits we're seeing out here. And it wasn't very long after that two people who didn't think that they could have a pregnancy together were pregnant. And we saw that as kind of a harbinger, a message of things that were about to happen. And I want to tell you a little story about a mourning dove that we had at the clinic for more than 3 years. Um, we found that there's a little vacant lot right next to the clinic. Some of you know where that's at. And we found it out there one morning. And its right wing had an old wound in it near the end of it. Couldn't fly. And gosh, what do? Well, take it in and we see what we can do with it. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with birds, and over the years I've dealt with a lot of wild birds, they're very fragile. And oftentimes they're damaged. The damage to them is just too much, and they don't survive what you try to do with them. But this particular one did. We thought, well, gosh, what do we name her? Just assume that it was a female. And we named her Venus. She was a real cool little bird. And of course, what's Venus? It's the planet, but it's also the Roman goddess of love, similar to the Greek Aphrodite. And so that was the one thing, the ideal that she's carrying us, love. She's bringing some message. And the other idea of naming her Venus was it was the morning star. It's what the Buddha saw after he was awakened during his travails of that night beforehand. And all of a sudden he understood, he saw clearly, and there he saw Venus in the morning sky, which is when it oftentimes shows up. So we named her Venus. And little did I realize at the time, this was in the early 90s, and little did I realize at the time that she was a harbinger of a lot of upheaval to come, spiritual upheaval to come. It's like in the New Testament, what's the symbol of the divine when Jesus is baptized by St. John? It's a dove descending in the form of the Holy Spirit. And the cool thing about mourning doves is they're monogamous. They mate for life. And one of the things that they're a symbol of is faithfulness. And in Genesis, I believe it's chapter 8, where the story of the flood and Noah and the ark is found, or part of the story. When Noah decides to check to see if the waters are lessening on the earth, he sends out a mourning dove. And the dove is gone for 7 weeks. And it comes back. And he takes it and he keeps it for a while. And mourning doves are known to be able to travel hundreds and hundreds of miles and come back to the very same spot where they started from. They have this sense of direction and the sense of home where they're most comfortable. So after 7 days, he sends it out again. It's gone for 7 days. This time it comes back with a small little branch. In the Bible, it says it's an olive branch in its mouth. Noah knows that land is out there. The waters are starting to dry up. In 7 days, he sends it out again, and it doesn't return. So he realized that it's found a place to nest and make a home, land. Mourning doves carry all the symbol of the divine, of monogamy, of faithfulness. Well, like I said, there was a lot of spiritual upheaval and marital upheaval about to happen in my life, which happened. And my wife and I broke up. And all of a sudden, I decided to follow the path of Presbyterian ministry and seriously got involved in seminary. So every once in a while, we had a big cage right in our pharmacy, right in front of the big window in our pharmacy. We had a cage, and big, huge cage we kept her in. Every once in a while, we'd take her out and let her try and fly. I'll be damned, that wing actually healed. The tip of it fell off, but brand new flight feathers flew. Unfortunately, it was shorter than the other wing, than her left wing. And so she tried to fly, but she couldn't do it. So we let her run around the clinic a bit, or flop around the clinic, I should say. Sounds cruel, but I mean, that's the way she got around. And then we put her back in the cage. And interestingly enough, every year, a few times during the spring and summer, we take the whole cage and take it outside, because we had seen a larger mourning dove start landing in that field by himself. No other mourning dove with it. And, I'll be damned, we would take that cage out there and he would come over, and we knew that was the mate. That was her mate. And he kept showing up there every year. He'd show up there. We'd put her out there. And there was nothing we could do. We couldn't let her go because she wouldn't survive. She'd be attacked by a cat. That may have been how the injury, we thought that's how the injury came along originally. That looked like it might have been a cat wound there that had attacked her. And finally she died. They normally live like 2 to 4 years. If you get lucky, you'll get a few more years. So we had her for 3.5 years. And she had meant so much to us that I don't know if any of you ever heard of General Squires Park out in Dryden. Just head up M53 Van Dyke, keep going up, and there's a park. And I used to go out there to hike. It was just one of my spots where there's nobody ever there. And I'd go there and hike the wooded lots there. And so I decided to bury her up there, and I had a funeral for her because she meant a lot. She was a friendly little creature, very faithful little creature, um, and introduced some major changes into my life. Took some incense and did some chanting and said some prayers for her, and missed her. I missed Venus. So in Korean Buddhism, the symbol of a bird is very important. On the back of each of our Tego kasas, there's a symbol of a rabbit, the rabbit in the moon. There's also a symbol of the three-legged crow. And the three-legged crow survives, lives, carries the energy, the spiritual energy of the sun. And it is more powerful than the phoenix, more powerful than dragon, the energy, the spiritual energy that it carries, which is why it's one of our symbols that we carry on our back. And the three-legged crow has been a symbol of East Asian Buddhism, of this kind of energy for centuries. China and Korea especially. And that kind of energy, that spiritual energy that the crow carries in its body, is the Dharma. The Dharma is for us that same type of spiritual energy that propels us along, that carries us along to find the truth of reality, to find the truth of our life. But you need two wings to do it. Like Venus, who just flopped around because she was out of balance, she was out of sorts. You need two wings to soar, to catch those wind drafts and to soar properly. There is a concept in Buddhism called the middle path, pratitya samuppada. That's the Sanskrit. That simply means the middle way, the middle path. You can't live at the extremes. You stay at the extreme too long, what happens? You crash. At this extreme too long, you crash. You're out of whack. You're out of balance. You find your way. Sometimes you're at one extreme or another just because of the circumstances you find yourself in, whether they're political, social, cultural, religious, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you have to momentarily be at the extreme, but ultimately you find the best way forward with balance. Balance. You need two wings. What are the two wings? Wisdom and compassion. Prajna and karuna. You need wisdom, you need compassion for your Dharma to manifest effectively, properly. I don't know how many of you watch Jeopardy. I watch it every night. I'm fascinated by how these people know so much. And a lot of people interpret wisdom as knowledge. Wisdom is not knowledge. You can know all the knowledge in the world, know all of this data, all of this information, all of these facts, and not be a wise person. Because wisdom deals with how you use with what you know to make sound, wise decisions. How do you use it? Not just for yourself to get ahead, to express your ego, if you will, but to help others. That's wisdom. Wisdom is one wing. Compassion is the other. Compassion is not sympathy. Sympathy is to have pity on other people. That's ego talking there. I pity them. It's too bad they can't be as good as I am, or have been raised where I've been raised or whatever. But compassion is to suffer with another person, to suffer with them, to feel, not just to feel their pain, to ask, but to ask, how can I help? Can I pray for you? Can I buy groceries for you? Can I visit you? That's what compassion is. It is feeling in action. So, prajna and Karuna. We need the two of them for the Dharma to manifest effectively in our lives. Thank you. Speaking of